I'm going to go to my guest. I don't want to keep him waiting. We are joined with the man himself, Jerry Gray. How you doing, Jerry? You doing okay this
Right. I'm good.
tonight
Let
for
me
us, I suppose?
let me just give you a bit of extra light. There you go.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Oh, much better, much better. Yeah, man, I'm glad that you could join me. And just for the audience who know, Jerry Gray, he is host of Jerry's Take on China. He's lived in China for more than 20 years and has traveled more than 30,000 kilometers on bike across the country. I love adding that part in because that part is just fascinating.
It's
um,
40,000.
oh,
I'll
yeah,
forgive
40.
you.
I'm sorry,
It
40,000. I need
is
to
more
change
than
my thing.
30. You're right.
Yeah, that is impressive. I put it in because it gets across that you have seen that country in a way that most Americans haven't even seen America. Like it's one
Yeah.
thing to, drive somewhere by car, you see it kind of out your window. It's another thing where you're pedaling as you're going by.
Yeah, I
So
think
no.
America and China are about the same size. And if you think about riding across America, let's say you want to ride from New York to Los Angeles or San Francisco, you're talking about a ride that will take you a minimum of 2 months. And that's the kind of thing that I've done 4 times now in different directions. I've done the north south, I've done the east west, I've done the west east, and I've done another south north, which is through the middle as opposed to the east coast. So yeah, there's a lot of miles there under the bike, under the tires. Yeah.
I wish I had your level of health to pull something like that off.
Well,
That is
sometimes so
impressive.
do I.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, so Donald Trump, he is
Yeah.
in Asia. He
Yes.
is supposed to be going to South Korea,
Yep.
Busan specifically, and he is going to have a conversation with Xi Jinping on the sidelines. That is the anticipated meeting.
Yeah. The
There
interesting
was a
thing
huge amount of
about that
bravado.
the very interesting thing about that is it hasn't been confirmed here that this conversation will go ahead. But yes, I believe it will,
Really?
but there's been no Chinese confirmation. So if it doesn't happen, it's not because China said, we don't want to do it. It's simply a case of if it doesn't happen, it hasn't been arranged properly. The Chinese people met with him in Kuala Lumpur. Chinese people are meeting in Brussels in the next few days as well. There's a lot of trade talks going on. And you could actually say, well, everything that's going on, and China is being very strict about this. They're saying, and this is what they're saying in their media and their government releases, we are complying with what the two leaders discussed when they had their multiple phone conversations. So they are not, China is not trying to say, screw you, America. China is saying, well, America, you told us this is what you want to do, and we're doing it, and we're doing everything we said we would do. Now, we can go into what Americans think China is not doing and how Americans are being led to believe that China is threatening, but that's a different story. China is
Mhm.
telling the world, and most of the world seems to be listening, that they are doing what they said they would do. And Trump cannot deny that if he goes to sit down. Now, if he says to China, you're being untruthful, China is just going to say, oh, well, there's no point in meeting you. So if it
Yeah.
does fall over, it's because something like that. But at the moment, there has been no confirmation that I've seen from the Chinese side that this meeting will go ahead, but I expect that it will. I have to say, I expect that it will go ahead. It will go ahead in Korea, and it's on the sidelines of the APEC conference, which is good. I think it's a good thing that they're talking. So ultimately, we all agree that they should be talking. Now, you have questions about what you think might happen. Let's go for them. You're muted. You're muted. I can't hear you. You still have the mute sign. I don't know if you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, so you still have the mute sign, says you're muted. So
There
something.
we are.
Yeah, back.
There we
We're
are.
back.
Yeah, this mic has a finicky wire. In the moment that you move the mic, sometimes the white goes out. I'm sorry.
That's all.
What's wild here, not only are they reporting that the meeting is going to take place, Trump administration has been putting out, yeah, we're close to a deal. We're going to get a deal. We believe that we can make agreements. And what's wild, it's even weirder than that, because what they're reporting here is that the Wall Street Journal came out with an article saying that Donald Trump has discussed fentanyl for tariff cuts. Basically saying he's going to offer tariff cuts if China cuts the amount of fentanyl coming into the United States. Now I find that to be laughable, that that's going to be the thing that they're actually talking about in earnest. It sounds like the fentanyl is being a stalking horse for, hey, we don't want to bring up the fact that China has rare earth mineral dominance over us. And we don't want to bring that up. That's what it sounds like.
China has mineral dominance, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Fentanyl. A few weeks ago, fentanyl was coming from China through Mexico into Canada, and both Mexico and Canada were tariffed because of fentanyl from China coming through them. Today, or yesterday and the day before, fentanyl is now coming from Venezuela and Colombia from China into America. Fentanyl is coming into America. Why can't America stop fentanyl coming in? China doesn't have a fentanyl problem. It has borders which are equally as big, but it doesn't have a fentanyl problem. Now, China has more land borders than America has. America only has 2. So suddenly we've got this situation that fentanyl is the issue. Now, if we are to say that fentanyl is the issue, okay, let's hypothetically for a moment accept that China is producing fentanyl and it's illegally finding its way into America. What do they want China to do? Because 10 years ago, or 8 years ago, China blocked all fentanyl going out of China without controlled restrictions. In the same way that all drugs in America are controlled, you have to get a prescription to get them, everything else is illegal. In the same way as the UK, Australia, and many other countries, drugs are illegal to buy. What China did was it didn't just say, we'll make these drugs illegal, we'll make all the precursors that you nominate illegal too. So every single drug that leaves China legally is going through a restricted process. Now, there's another little bridge here to something else that we're going to discuss, and that is rare earth elements are exactly the same thing. China has done the same for rare earth elements as it did for fentanyl years ago. It said, we're not going to allow this to go out where it can be used illegally, where we can't control where it goes to. So if it is leaving the country, it's leaving the country illegally, and China is doing a lot to stop it. It's actually executing drug dealers all the time. There's another one, an Australian, going through a drug deal at the moment. He's going through an appeal, I should say, not a drug deal. Sorry. He's going through an appeal at the moment because he has been sentenced to death in China for exporting or trying to export 7.5 kilos of amphetamines. Now, wow. I don't know the difference between amphetamine and fentanyl, but the fact is, drug dealers in China, anyone illegally using drugs, is going to get into a lot of trouble in China, probably to the point that, poof, they get the bullet in the back of their head on a Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. That's going to happen to this guy almost certainly. Now, it might change. I don't agree with the death penalty, but it might change, and he might get a suspended death penalty. He might get his 2 years in prison and then deported. I don't know what's going to happen to him. But the fact is, at the moment, he's going through an appeal. China has done everything it can already to stop the legal and illegal removal of fentanyl and all its precursors from China into any other country in the world. China has more controls over fentanyl than any other country in the world. And it has that because it's worked and continues to work with the Drug Enforcement Agency. Now,
Yeah.
that's something that Americans seem to forget, that there is a Drug Enforcement Agency office in Shanghai. There is one in Guangzhou. These are two of the major cities that export from China. Both have DEA offices. They were closed down temporarily after Nancy Pelosi made her ill-fated visit to Taiwan, and they were closed down as part of the ramifications of that, but they do exist still. So I don't think that, I mean, basically this is just political talk. America will come, Trump will raise this. They're saying you're going to raise Jimmy Lai. Jimmy Lai is a Hong Kong publisher, billionaire, who was spending NED money to create the protests and the riots and the bombings and the murders inside of Hong Kong. And he's in prison at the moment. So Jimmy Lai is going to be raised because they don't want this guy to languish in a prison for the rest of his life, which he's almost certain to do. So Jimmy Lai for Hong Kong, fentanyl is another one, rare earth elements are another one. And America literally has not a single card to play. Now, Trump says, we've got all the cards. And the joke is, Xi Jinping says, where were your cards made? They were made in China. That is the truth of it. All of Trump's cards are made in China. He's not going to get away with this. He's not going to come here and make demands. And the fact is, America's trade with China has reduced considerably. And they're saying China's collapsing as a result of it. I've just made a recent video, which will go out probably in about 40 minutes' time. I've made a long video to show that that China is not in any danger of collapsing whatsoever. It's completely the opposite. China's trade is up. China's profitability is up. China's purchasing managers index in production and services are up. China's commerce, e-commerce, retail commerce, they're all up. China's savings are up. China's income is up. China's life expectancy is up. Everything, every measurable metric that you can think of for China is up. We are not a country, and I say we because I'm in China, we're not a country that's on the verge of collapse in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. It's completely the opposite. It's a country that has challenges, but most of those challenges are being created by America. Now, America has far more challenges, far more challenges. Every time I open my X, I see Americans telling Scott Bessent that he's a lying POS because he says fuel is down, food is down, inflation is down, rates are down, everything is down. And 400 commentators under him saying, you're fucking lying to me. It's not down at all. And it's not. And that's the sort of comments that you're getting. So why are Americans so angry with America? And why are Americans now starting to say we actually need a relationship with China? And they are. More Americans are starting to say, they've got it better over there. They're starting to see this because thousands of people are coming on TikTok, on Douyin, on Red Note, on YouTube, and they're showing China. And you can't fake this. You can fake one city, you can fake one region, you can fake one part of a city, but you can't fake what I've seen. You can't fake the fact that you're riding through China and then the high-speed rail goes past you, and another high-speed rail goes another way, and then the slow-speed rail goes with 5,000 tons of coal to the power station. You can't fake this stuff. China is real, and the stories you're being told from inside of China are equally as real. And everybody who's responding to the comments in America is saying, you're lying to us. So why are you trusting the same people who in America are lying to you when you're not trusting them about China? So more and more people are starting to say, well, hang on, this can't be right. What I'm being told about China can't be right. It's not.
Yeah. We don't have high-speed rail, so I don't know what that looks like in practice of having trains zip by like that. We have we have Amtrak, and Amtrak doesn't even go all the way across the country. I mean, we're hard pressed to get from like Richmond to Chicago. Would be a difficult haul. Like
I got on a metro train a few weeks ago in Guangzhou, and it traveled at 186 kilometers an hour. That's about 110 miles an hour. And that's a metro. That's a subway. That's your underground subway traveling at 180 kilometers an hour. We have a slow speed train that runs from Guangzhou to Zhuhai. I live between these two cities. I'm closer to Zhuhai than Guangzhou. And it takes 17 minutes to get the 93 kilometers to Guangzhou on the high speed. But that's not even a real high speed. That is limited to 250 kilometers an hour. Then there's a 350 kilometer an hour, and they have just introduced the 450 kilometer an hour, which is in operation right now. But it's not carrying passengers yet, and the reason is they won't carry passengers until they've done 1 million uneventful kilometers, and they're doing that. They're just running these trains backwards and forwards across lines to get the 1 million kilometers up until they can say, we haven't had an incident, now give us approval. It's like the FAA approval. You need a tick in the box to say that you've traveled this far. So we have a 450 kilometer line, and the 600 kilometer line is already in development and in place between Shanghai and Beijing, but it's not open for passengers yet. 600 kilometers an hour. You fly at 600 kilometers an hour.
Just wow.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. It hurts a little, but that's okay.
I'm sorry. I stabbed you in the heart with my pencil. I'm sorry.
Let me ask you this: what does Xi Jinping want out of these negotiations? I mean, Donald Trump
Xi Jinping has made it extremely clear what he wants, time and time again. He wants no powerful hegemony in the world. He wants a multipolar world where every country has equal rights, equal say, and an equal position at the bargaining table. He does that all the time. He invites people from tiny little countries that most people have never heard of, Nauru, the Solomon Islands, Fiji. He invites people from Mauritius. He invites people from the Solomon Islands. He invites them in and he gives them a state reception. He meets them there with the military off the airport. He invites the leaders of the smallest countries in the world to come to China and treats them in exactly the same way as he treats the elected leaders of every other country in the world, or the leaders, the kings, queens, and etc. He gives everybody a state arrival. Even Donald Trump got it when he came to China. Richard Nixon got it years ago. Donald Trump got it. Everybody gets it. Every single leader of every single country is treated equally in China as the leader of a sovereign nation. You are our number one person today. Now, tomorrow there'll be another leader of a sovereign nation, and that's the number one today. And the next day will be another one. That's the number one today. So that's the way China does it. It wants no hegemony. It wants a multipolar world, and it does not seek leadership either in economy, in power, in military power. It doesn't seek anything except free and fair trade. That's what Xi Jinping wants. And he's said it 1,000 times. You just have to look. It even came out last week. We had what's called the fourth plenary session of the 14th five-year term. And I've just made a video about this as well, which will be a couple of days because I haven't finished it yet. But what we've got there is the planning strategy for the next 5 years. And in it, it talks about how they diversify their markets, how they change their markets, how they don't seek power. They don't want to be the number one. They want to be one of a number of equals. There's 196 countries in the world. There are 196 leaders of those countries in the world. Every single one of them deserves the same respect as Xi Jinping because they're the leader of their country for whatever reasons, however they got there. They may be the king and born to it. They may be a queen and born to it. They may be an elected representative. They may be a military coup winner who, now remembering that China became powerful through a military coup 75 years ago. So China even respects those people. If there is enough military to fight to get you to win, then probably you have the support of the people. That's the way China views it. So they're not really interested in Donald Trump coming along and saying, we want to put America first. We want American jobs. We want American interests. This is going to be good for America. We're not going to make America great again. Xi Jinping would like to make the world great. Everyone in the world. It doesn't matter where you come from. That's what Xi Jinping wants. So that's what China wants. That's what Marxism requires. And that is what Xi Jinping is. He's a Marxist. He's a socialist. And he's building a country here in China that we should probably stop saying the word communism. We should stop saying Marxism. We should stop saying socialism, because all of those words have been tainted by 70 or 100 years of negativity to make them appear bad. They're not. They're not bad. I am a socialist. I do not have any problems saying to people, but I did for a very long time saying I'm a socialist. I didn't realize I was a socialist for many years. If you want equality for all, if you want education that's fair, if you want healthcare that's affordable, if you want your system to be people can rise above or people can be lazy and not, that's what socialism does. It gives you everything you want. It really is. People work hard and they get what they deserve. That's what socialism can give you. Socialism gives you that, whereas capitalist elitism does not. You've got 3 people who control something like 50% of America's entire money. 3 people. Yeah, you can say that's good because capitalism gave them that. And anyone can do it. Yeah, anyone can. But 350 million can't. And there's where it's wrong. That's what Xi Jinping wants. He will go into that meeting. If there is a meeting, he will go in there and he'll say, yeah, we're looking for equality. We're looking for stability. We're looking for safety. We're looking for security. You currently have thousands of weapons pointed at my country. And we provided you the means to do that. So we've stopped. That's the rare earth elements. Now, one of the things that I know you want to talk about tonight is rare earth elements. And I can promise you, no matter what is said, it is not changing. Rare earth elements will not be available for military use to any country, anywhere, including Russia, including Israel, including Ukraine, including Palestine, anywhere. Rare earth elements will not be available to any country, anywhere, until all those countries stop pointing them out and start using them for defense. And America needs to remove 800 bases from around the world and say, let's defend America, which is what this is all about. The Department of Defense should have soldiers in America protecting America's borders. No one would disagree with that. Why does the Department of Defense have 10,000 troops in Australia, 3,000 troops in Philippines, 100,000 troops in Japan, in Korea? Why? They have them there because they want to threaten, not defend. That's what it's about.
To be fair, it is called the Department of War.
Now, yes.
It's more honest now.
Yeah, they basically just said the quiet part out loud again.
Right, right. It's far more honest in the way they name it now. So you're saying that it doesn't matter what is going to take place in that meeting. That policy on rare earths is not changing.
No, if we're talking about rare earths, nothing that can be said will change China's policy on rare earths. What needs to happen is a complete removal of all military hardware, all military support that is threatening China. Now, that means the Philippines, that means Australia, that means Korea and Japan. And we know these are not going to happen. And of course, Taiwan, they have soldiers. America has soldiers 3 kilometers off the coast of China, in a province of China. Now, we could argue about the disputed ownership of that province, or not the ownership, the disputed management of that province, but we cannot argue that Taiwan and China are one country. And then why is America in Taiwan? Why are they on Kinmen Island? Kinmen Island is 3 kilometers off the coast of Xiamen. You can see it from the windows of the college where I've been. I've been into the university there, and I can see it. And from there, with a pair of binoculars or a telescope, I could probably see Americans training and training Taiwanese people to be aggressive towards China.
Wow.
How is that normal? This is not normal. They're talking about Cuba. Did you see that the United Nations ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, got called down in a point of order today because he wanted to say that Cuba is supporting terrorism. It's supporting China and Russia. And it's not. Cuba is not doing anything. Cuba's not sending mercenaries out of its borders to fight Americans. It's no threat to America. The only reason they think it's a threat is because it doesn't do what they want it to do, same as Venezuela. Venezuela's full of oil and nothing else. It's not full of fentanyl. It's not full of cocaine. It never was. It never has been. Suddenly, it's a drug-running country, and we're extrajudicially murdering people in the ocean, in international waters. And I believe that the admiral who was in charge of the fleet that was doing that has resigned as a result.
Yep.
Now, why? Why did he resign? Because he was being forced. He's a man of ethics. I think it was a man. As a man of ethics, and he was being forced to break international law and murder people who haven't had due process. If you believe those are drugs, interdict them, stop them, charge them, send them to prison, execute them, do whatever you like, whatever your law says you can do. But unless you can prove these are drugs, you don't murder them. That's against the law. And it is against the law. And I don't care what any lawyer justifies. You can change words to justify things, but you cannot change the fact that as they did in Pakistan a few years ago, as they have done in Iraq, as they've done in Libya, as they've done in Syria, they are murdering people without due process.
Yes.
They invade a country without UN approval. They murder people when they're there. This is a rogue nation in action. And now they're trying to do the same thing. They dare not do it to China, but they're doing it inside of a province of China. They are in China. They have boots on the ground. They have invaded China's sovereign territory. And they do this with impunity. So all Xi Jinping is going to do is say, well, I'm sorry, we're not going to allow that to happen again. China is going to save the world, literally, because they were not going to give in on this. Bessent came out of a meeting in Malaysia the other day, and he said, oh, this is amazing. You know, they're going to give us a 12-month reprieve. They're not. They're going to give you a 12-month review. In 12 months' time, they're going to say, yeah, but no. Not going to change. That's what it is. They're not giving America a 12-month reprieve. But the military industrial complex, to keep their share price up, needs Bessent to say, we're getting a 12-month reprieve. Look at the TikTok sale. I saw in September Donald Trump posting, TikTok sale is done. It's still not done. That was a lie. Was that a lie, or did Donald Trump make a mistake? It's a lie.
It's a lie.
Donald Trump lied. And when Donald Trump lies, his elites, his royal family, watch their profits rise, and then everybody else loses money. Everybody's losing money except the people in the know. That's how America works. That's how Donald Trump is working. He's enriched himself to the tune of billions. He's enriched his family. He's just pardoned the Binance guy because Binance have got control of a lot of his money. Now, the deal will be that the Binance will continue to earn him more money. So the guy's got a pardon. He served his time in prison. I think he was there for 4 months. Now he can run the business again. He can run it the way Donald Trump says, I want you to run this business. It's a criminal cartel. It's not just a simple case of, oh, look, America are doing something naughty. It's a criminal cartel. It's a mafia. It's worse than anything the mafia could have done because it's global. It's theft on an industrial scale. That's what they're up to. It's murder on an industrial scale. That is what America is doing.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you nail it. I mean, no, you're nailing it. I mean,
I thought I left you speechless for a moment. That's unusual.
Well, I just saw the article for a moment I just saw the article recently where it broke down the amount of money that Donald Trump was effectively earning, quote unquote, earning over the course of this administration, just over the course of the last several months that he's been in office. I mean, he's earned like hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah.
Billions.
Well,
Not
well,
Donald Trump
they
personally, but his family and
family.
his meme coins and his interests. Yeah,
Yeah, it's astonishing. It's
yeah.
just utterly astonishing.
Mhm.
And as you point out, for the guy to go into the United Nations, claim that Cuba is committing terrorism, as the United States murders 21 random people in boats that in no way can make it to the United States, let alone.
One of whom Colombia has said was a fisherman. Now, yeah, he may have
Yes.
been a fisherman. What was he doing in that boat? I don't know. Was he genuinely a fisherman? I don't know. But do they know? We have intelligence. They had intelligence that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction.
That's
It
right.
didn't, and it still doesn't. They had intelligence that these things happen. They don't. They had intelligence that fentanyl's coming from China. They have no evidence. There has never been an item of evidence submitted that proves to me. Now, I'm an ex-cop. I look at evidence and I say, well, can I prove this in a court? If I can't prove it in a court, then it's not really evidence, it's an allegation. It's
Mhm.
not really evidence at all until I can contest it. And when I can contest it, when I can challenge it, when I can fight it, and it still stands, then it's evidence. Until then, it's allegations. Let's look
That's
at
not
the allegations
how it works.
and see if they stand up in a court of law. If they don't stand up in a court of law, they're nothing more than allegations. I mean, a great example is how many times Xi Jinping has said, we're going to invade Taiwan. America keeps saying this. American media keeps saying this. The deadline is 2025, of which we have about 8 weeks left. America keeps saying, China is going to invade Taiwan in 2025. Well, let's see if that happens, because in all honesty, there's been no evidence that it's going to happen. China has no inkling to invade. All China has ever said is, if anyone decides that they're going to take Taiwan away from China, we're going to defend it from that group. So they will embargo, they will sanction, they will blockade, is probably the best word. They will blockade Taiwan. They won't invade it. First of all, how can you invade your own territory, which the United Nations recognizes it as? But they will definitely blockade it and stop anything coming in except what China wants to put on there, on the island. And they will get rid of the Americans. I saw in Burkina Faso today they've arrested all NGO members and charged them with treason. No,
Yeah.
honestly, I don't know if all of them are guilty of treason. Let's look at the evidence, but they're going to either execute or deport a lot of people if they are working against the interests of that country. If you want to be an NGO, you go into a country to support that country, to help that country, to help the people, to do charitable works, to do good works. You don't go in there to change the regime of that country. And if you do, you can certainly expect to pay the consequences. And that's what the CIA have been doing for 70 years, since the Second World War. The OSS started it, the CIA finished it, and NED has made it legitimate. But that's what they've been doing for a very, very long time.
I want to show you something.
Sure.
This has taken place in Indonesia. Let me see if I can pull this up. Right
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Indonesia raises 842 million in first ever yuan bond.
Yeah.
There's
Panda
also
bonds.
panda bonds, right? There's also something similar taking place, I believe, in Kenya. There's, I believe, Zambia, maybe another one of the countries where this is taking place in, where China seems to be, well, in those countries, in some African countries, there was an exchange basically saying, hey, you can convert your loans into yuan, you can get better
Yeah.
rates,
Yeah.
etc. And it was a win-win because
Slightly different thing. The African things are not bond issues. What they're doing in Africa is they are changing their IMF dollar loans, their World Bank loans. They're changing their dollar loans into RMBs. And what that means is China is saying to them, okay, you've got a loan here. The loan is at 7%. And it's worth, I mean, I don't know the numbers. Let's say it's worth $100 million. $100 million at 7%. We will give you 700 million RMB at 2% with no conditions. Now you can pay off your loan. So
I
they have
see.
now loaned this money to these African countries. Kenya is one, Tanzania was another. There's a couple of others as well. The Indonesian thing's an entirely different thing. That is a bond issue where people can
Okay.
borrow money in RMB. So that's a slightly different thing. But the African ones, and people are saying, well, what about the debt trap? Well, yeah, they've just got out of it. The debt trap was what they were in, and now China has got them out of it, and they can now afford to pay back because it's fixed interest at 2%. It has no clauses that say if you don't pay us back, we're going to take away your
Take your water.
utilities, or
Yeah.
your water, your electricity, your power generation, your oil. That is what the IMF have been doing for 70 years or 50 years. So China has gone in there and said, look, okay, you've got a debt problem here. You can't afford to pay it off. Your annual fee to pay it off is this much. How about we lend you in RMB 700 million, which is 100 million US dollars. You pay off your debt completely. Now, what will happen now is if that country says, let's not pay off the debt. Let's use this money to do something. Now, if they do that, then they're going to be screwed eventually because they have to pay off the Chinese debt and they have to pay off the IMF debt as well. But if they just pay off the IMF debt, now they have reduced their annual outgoings, and at the same time, they've protected their national resources and their national infrastructure. And China is now a permanent friend to that country. And China doesn't ask for anything other than, oh, you've got these resources. Can we buy them off you at market price? That is what China will do. Buy them off them at market price. Now, okay, the market price might be 1% under, 2% under. And Americans will say, oh, look, they're ripping them off. America's been ripping them off for 100 years. Britain ripped them off, France ripped them off, Spain ripped them off, Portugal, Dutch, Germans, they ripped them off for 400 years. China has come along and said, mutually beneficial situation here. We can do this for you. So, yeah, the Indonesian one and the Africans are slightly different. But, yeah,
Okay.
there are other international bonds in RMB too. And what that does is that reduces their exposure to dollars. So, for example, imagine this. If you're in Kenya and you want to go to Tanzania, which is next door, and you want to buy Tanzania's grain, whatever grain they produce, I don't know, but you want to buy Tanzania's grain. So you say, I want to buy all that grain from you. I'll give you, 10 million Kenyan shillings. And they go, we don't want Kenyan shillings. We've got no use for Kenyan shillings. So, we want US dollars. So then Kenya has to go to the US and buy this US dollar, or keep it in or take it from its reserves if it has any reserves. I don't know Kenya's individual situation, but then it uses its US dollars to buy the grain, and Tanzania sends it, and it then has US dollars. And then Eswatini comes along and says, we want to buy something from you, but we only have Eswatini, whatever I don't know the currency of Eswatini, so I probably shouldn't have said that. South Africa wants rand. So you've got this situation where they're all having to go to America and borrow or buy American dollars. Now they don't have to. They can buy in shillings, Kenyan shillings, and Tanzania can sell stuff to China in RMB or in dollars or in rubles or in whatever currency they want. They can do local currency exchanges now, and they don't have to use the SWIFT system, which takes several days, costs a percentage. They can use CIPS, which is done instantly like that, and it costs nothing, a minuscule of a percentage point. It's a very, very tiny point. So they're not paying the American system. They're not using American money as much as they did. And this is the beginning of the end of the dollar hegemony. It's a long, long time before dollars become useless to the world, but it will happen one day. But it's probably not even in my lifetime. It won't happen in the next probably 20 or 30 years, certainly, definitely not in the next 10 years. The dollar will not become a useless currency like the Kenyan shilling might be right now. No. The dollar won't become that. It's a long, long way from that. The dollar is still big. So, if a company, let's say BYD, wants to buy a Hungarian car company, Chinese BYD wants to buy a Hungarian car company, the Hungarian car company, if there is such a thing, says, we don't want this in RMB, we want this in US dollars. you have to use US dollars. So the US dollars is not going away. There are enough US dollars on the market to keep it secure and keep it safe, but its importance is diminishing on a day-by-day basis. And China is leading that, and is one of the main reasons why the US really wants to contain China, because China is leading the world on de-dollarization. And it's making, there's no BRICS currency, there never will be a BRICS currency, but there will be internal trade in local currencies within BRICS. What people don't realize, they say China is isolated. The West keep telling us China's isolated. They've just signed an enhanced free trade agreement with ASEAN. ASEAN is their largest customer as a group. They have RCEP. RCEP is the regional cooperative partnership, economic partnership with, I think, 7 or 8 countries in Asia. It's the largest free trade agreement in the world. They have an enhanced partnership with the Eurasian Economic Union, which is 5 countries to the west of China. Yeah, that's the ASEAN one. Yeah, they just did that in Malaysia.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're absolutely. What's this one? ASEAN. Yeah, this is the ASEAN signature of the Enhanced Free Trade Agreement. So, yeah, that is worth a round of applause. The Enhanced Free Trade Agreement with ASEAN means that the whole of ASEAN is now in a free trade bloc with China. The whole of RCEP, some of which are Asian countries, but include Australia as well, are in a bloc of free trade agreements with China. The free trade agreement, or the agreement, the enhanced agreement that it has with the Eurasian Economic Union, which is Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Russia, Iran, there's a free trading agreement there. So all of the west of China is in this free trading bloc. All of the east and south of China, with the exception of Japan, is in a free trading bloc. So it's a really good position. This is not isolated. China has also signed a free tariff agreement with Africa. 53 of the 54 African countries, and only one, Eswatini, which still recognizes Taiwan and gets paid to do so by the National Endowment for Democracy, that the monarchy, the absolute monarchy of Eswatini, is supported by the National Endowment for Democracy and recognizes Taiwan is not part of the African tariff-free arrangement. So every country in Africa can export to China completely tariff-free. That's 53 countries. China now has 96 free trade agreements effectively. Isolated? I think not.
Yeah. That's the opposite of isolated. I mean, that is effectively reaching out to the entirety of the world.
The BRI does more. BRICS does more. I'm only talking about their free trade agreements here. You talk about a collapsing economy? Come and have a look. I welcome you to come to China and have a look. I'll show you this collapsing economy. It's completely the opposite. And people say, well, yeah, but look at the deflation that it's going through. It only had 0.5% inflation. It had 0.5% inflation with 5% growth in income. Now, can you imagine getting a 5% salary increase with 0 or 0.5% inflation? Your cost of living has not gone up, but your income just did by 5% or 6% or 7%. This is what's happening here in China. Every single person is better off than they were a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. They're all better off every time. Now, yeah, they're 5.2% unemployed. They would like that to be lower. Of course, everybody wants that to be lower. Yes, there's a challenge with the youth unemployment, and it spikes every June, and we hear about it. June and July, they say youth unemployment in China is over 20%. Yeah, it is, but a lot of people just graduated. Let's look at where they are in September, October, and November. By the end of the year, youth employment is back down to manageable levels. It happens every year. This is a thing that's going on all the time. They're taking an outlier of China's economy and saying, this is China's economy collapsing. Retail sales were down. Okay, retail sales in shops were down because people are shopping online. Retail sales in online shopping are way, way up. Overall, retail sales are up. Overall, profitability is up. How can you have profitability up when you have overcapacity and deflation. It doesn't work. You can't have both. They're not telling you that profitability is up. They're not telling you that the purchasing managers' indices for services and production are up over the 50%. They're telling you that something is going wrong here. Yeah, shops are closing, restaurants are closing. People are eating at home and takeaways are improving. Restaurants are smaller now with less tables. Not all of them, of course, but you can still get big restaurants. But a lot of restaurants have decided we're going to just have 10 tables instead of 20 tables, but we'll expand the size of the kitchen because we're getting so many orders. The orders are coming in and the delivery drivers. So the online economy, the low altitude economy, which is the deliveries by air, things like this, the low altitude economy, the drone shows, this is incredible. They've actually made an economy out of between the top of my house and a kilometer. There's a whole economy opening up.
Oh,
right there.
You mean the drones flying food?
Drones, air taxis, air cars, advertising, drone shows. These are all part of, you can have advertising up there. You can pay. One of my local media friends told me, Zhongshan Ribao, our local media group, paid 1 million RMB for 7 days of a drone show. And I went there one night as their guest. It cost 1 million RMB and it was free. I went there and I was there for 40 minutes and I saw the most incredible drone show. And I was there on one night and there would have been 100,000 people there. The next day, probably the same. It went on for 7 nights. There was one night where it got cancelled because the wind was too strong. The typhoon was coming, so they canned it. But yeah, they paid 1 million RMB for this drone show to advertise. That's what's happening.
Well, if we're talking about a weakening economy, so numbers came out. UPS is laying off 48,000, Amazon up to 30,000, Intel 24,000, Nestle 16,000, Accenture 11,000, Ford 11,000, Novo Nordisk 9,000, Microsoft 7,000, and you can go down the list. And from the standpoint of wages, our wages are effectively frozen. They're flat.
Yeah.
We are, however, paying for tariffs. And the report came out, I think this was maybe a couple of days ago. I could find it in my queue somewhere, where it was like over $1 trillion that we as Americans are going to have to pay. Or that, let's say, basically in tariffs, but that businesses are going to pass on to consumers or have been passing on to consumers. The overwhelming majority of the money is hitting us. So we are getting hit with inflation and everything else. Like, it's amazing to me that they continuously point the finger at China for this stuff, whereas we are encountering the same pressures, if not more so, especially considering we pay for the tariffs, not the companies. The companies may pay a percentage, but we cover those costs. So
I think there's going to be a certain amount of what they call eating the tariffs. China has eaten some of the tariffs. Companies come, if you've got a company in China and you're manufacturing only for the American market, you're going to have to say, okay, I've got to eat some of this. And you negotiate, we'll absorb 50% of this. Can you do the rest? Now, the biggest problem is today we don't know what the tariffs are. They've been up to 257%. They've been down to 27%. They've been back up to 150%. They're now currently at 57%, I think 57%, and they're likely to change to 157%, depending on the whim of your elected president. That's the problem. So when China says, yeah, we'll make them for you, whatever it is, you want 10,000 widgets, yeah, we'll make them, this is the price. Then the American customer comes back and says, look, I've got to pay on that price. I've got to pay this much. Can you wear part of it? So they say, we'll wear 10, 20, 50, whatever percentage of it. But we want payment up front. Then they have to pay up front because the Chinese company are not going to. What happens when a product arrives in America and the factory or the shop or the retailer, wholesale, whatever the person is, if they're not a huge conglomerate, they get a phone call from the border control which says, hey, we've got your product here. You need to come and pay us X amount of dollars. And they say, well, hang on, I've just paid for it. I paid China for it. I've paid for it. And they're going to say, yeah, you paid China. They've shipped it over here. but you've got to pay us. And then those people are going, well, hang on, how do I pay it? Well, you've got 7 days. Come and pick it up. You've got 7 days to pay it. That's what's happening. So whatever it was that China agreed to pay, and then, of course, we have FOB, freight on board or free on board. What happens is as soon as that stuff is on board, it doesn't get shipped until the user at the other end, the buyer at the other end, has paid for it to be shipped. Then it gets shipped. Once it gets shipped, it arrives in America, it's been fully paid for, and the American buyer goes to the customs office and has to pay another 100%, 57%, 150. I don't know. They don't know either. They don't know until the day they get it what they're going to pay for it. So then they have to put that onto their margin to recover it. That's a fact. That can't be changed because we make things. I've been in industry in China for a long time. We make things here and we say to our customers, okay, we're making this, we're starting making this, send us 10, 20 or 30, whatever agreed deposit that we have. And then when we start shipping it, we'll give you the paperwork for it to be put on board. You then pay us. Once you pay us, it's gone. We don't have anything more to do with it. It's gone. You've paid us for it. Bye-bye. It arrives in America and someone says, well, I can't afford, I've just paid $20,000 for this container. I cannot afford to pay $17,000 in tax or $25,000 in tax or $100,000. I don't know what the number is. Neither do they until they get there because it depends on the whim of your president. So that's the real big problem. People are being
on a whim, like meaning if when
your president just did this the other day. He said, well, I'm going to put 100% tariffs on China. Is he? He said he is. Now he says, because he's taco, now he says, okay, we won't put that 100% on. That's a negotiating position. So we're going to wait until tomorrow when they meet, and then they're going to have a lovely, cordial, constructive meeting, because they always call it constructive, don't they? And at the end of that meeting, what's going to happen? They're going to be told, this is the new tariff. Now, it may be lower, it may be higher. I don't know yet. But it will change a week later when Donald Trump gets up and puts the wrong socks on or something. I don't know what his decisions are made on. He's really totally unpredictable. But we're not importing soybeans from there anymore. He's sending money to Argentina so Argentina can send soybeans to us. We eat a lot of beans here. I can tell you, a lot. Tofu is huge here, and this all comes from soybeans. I happen to like baked beans, Heinz baked beans and those kinds of things, and they all come from your soybeans. But they're not. Farmers in America now are saying, well, who's buying our soybeans? I don't know.
Nobody.
I don't know.
I mean, they're
well, why should China buy them? They're buying them from Brazil, which is a BRICS country. They're buying them from Argentina because Argentina can afford to sell them cheaper. They're buying them from Australia. They're buying them from Indonesia and a few other places. They're buying these things.